So this is a very special episode today that we're filming, and it's been suggested by a subscriber in Leeds called Peter. And this is a memorial to the Leeds Pals Battalion who trained here.
It was the West Yorkshire Battalion, wasn't it?
No, it was the Leeds Pals Battalion.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'll tell you a bit more about the West Yorkshire Regiment.
Mm-hmm.
So, this memorial is a cairn.
It was erected by the survivors, relatives and friends of the 5th Battalion of West Yorkshire Regiment.
15th.
Known as the Leeds Pals.
The 15th Battalion.
Oh, yes. To mark the site of the first camp, September 1914. And is dedicated to all who served in the battalion. It was unveiled September 28th, 1935. I asked you, didn't I? I couldn't understand why it was in the middle of nowhere. And we seem to have gleaned a little bit of information, don't we? Apparently this was where their training camp was. And so obviously it's a good place to have their memorial, even though it doesn't seem to be the best. And this land here looks to me... Right, this is the drone footage. You might be able to see here now some terraces down the slope, and that is definitely where the huts would have been, obviously. So that's exactly where they would have been.
Yeah, the outlines there, can't you?
That's where the huts would have been, yeah.
Where the foundations...
Well, the flat floor, obviously. If you're enjoying this video, have a look at our other content and...
Subscribe. It helps to grow the channel. Right, shall we get back on?
So, the outbreak of the First World War, the British had a very small, very professional army. And they went across to France, and they were known as the British Expeditionary Force. Obviously they needed reinforcement in France, and Kitchener, the Minister for War at the time, your country needs you, that guy, he decided we needed a very large standing army. I think it was Rawlinson thought it would encourage men to enlist if they could join together. There was a number of benefits: mates, colleagues, people who had loyalty to one another, and also similar accents. Accents back in the day were probably stronger than they are now. And if you think about somebody with a very strong, I don't know, for example, Birmingham accent or a Cockney accent, trying to communicate with somebody who had a very strong West Yorkshire accent or a very strong Newcastle accent, they might have miscommunication between them. So it's a great idea, in principle, to have mates join together. Encourage them to join. There was a problem. The Leeds Pals were decimated, their ranks were decimated. Not completely wiped out, but they were decimated. They did amalgamate with other regiments later on, but the thing is, that meant the whole streets and whole workplaces lost an entire generation of young men. So it was a good idea, but then again it wasn't. Literally there could be whole streets where pretty well every single house on the street would be receiving that dreadful telegram.
Well, we've been past the train station where they came from. It's at Somme. They landed there on 25th of September 1914, and it's just about 6 mile walk?
About a 6 mile walk up here.
Yeah. But it's now a cafe.
Well, reuse a building, why not?
Yeah.
Disuse railway. The Leeds Pals trained here, which is why this monument's here, because I couldn't understand why they built a monument in the middle of nowhere. Well, why have if they're from Leeds, why haven't they built it in Leeds? I believe there is a monument in Leeds.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, but I couldn't understand why this was in the middle of nowhere, but it makes absolute sense. And if you are coming to pay respects to loved ones, family and loved ones and friends, then what better place? It's such a peaceful place. You know, we haven't had a single car come past, we haven't seen a soul. So it is a beautiful location.
It was the Navy camp originally.
I know, for 30 years or more, because it was for for the building of the reservoirs, Leighton Reservoir and one of the other reservoirs. Or that one, Round Hill Reservoir.
And the telltale signs of what it looks like from above. There's some of the men. And, past that. The first deployment for the Leeds Pals Battalion was in the December of 1915, where they were sent to Egypt to defend the Suez Canal against the Ottoman Empire. And that lasted till about March of 1916, where they were sent to France, ready to prepare for the big push of the Battle of the Somme, 1st of July 1916. Their objective was to head towards the village of Serre, and it's quite close to Beaumont Hamel and various other places around that. There's a long
Lochnagar Crater, I believe.
There's a long front line of something like 26 miles, but this sector on the first day of the Battle of Somme was approximately 18 miles. So just before 7:30, 0 hour, the artillery released a bombardment of basically trying to decimate the German front lines, their trenches, their barbed wire. So it would make it easy for the men to just to simply walk across, stroll across no man's land, take their trenches, and it would be just a walk in the park, so to speak. But what they didn't account for was that the Germans were hid in dugouts, and they were very much still alive. The dugouts were approximately 40 foot deep,
What, up to?
something like that. The whistle blows, it's 0 hour. They emerge from their trench over the parapet and begin to walk. And literally within 10 minutes, the battalion was cut down to pieces. A few made it towards the barbed wire, which wasn't actually broken. And some were dead and some lay dying. It was the bloodiest battle known in the British Army up to that point. I will tell you, there was one particular soldier that I can mention that I do know about. His name is Horace, and in 1914 he was 14 years old when he enlisted. So he lied about his age, like some others did, and he was in this front line heading towards the village of Serre, and his sister had written him a letter basically telling him that he shouldn't be there, he's too young. And when the head office or the generals would find out that he was only 16 at the time, they would say, "Oh, you're far too young, you need to go home." We've got a copy of that letter. You can read it out. I'll put my glasses on. So it says, "My dear Horace, just a line or two to say thank you very much for the card Mother gave me yesterday. It's very pretty. I'm so glad you are all right so far, but I need not tell you what an anxious time I'm having on your account. You have dropped in for the thick of it, and make no mistake, I only hope that you have the good luck and to come back safely like your father did. And my dear boy, I don't care how soon. I should be more than pleased to see you, I can tell you. You have no need to feel ashamed you joined the Pals now. By all accounts, they have rendered a good account of themselves. No one calls them the feather-bed soldiers now. We did hear that they were fetching all back from France under 19. For goodness sake, Horace, tell them how old you are. I'm sure they will send you back if they know how old you are, only 16. You've seen quite enough now. Just chuck it up and try to get back. You won't fare no worse for it. If you don't do it now, you'll come back in bits, and we want the whole of you. I don't suppose you can do any letter writing now, but just remember, I am always thinking of you and hoping for your safe return. So no more this time. Only my love. Bob says hurry up and come back. Your loving sister, Florrie. 20 kisses." So several weeks later, this letter was returned to Florrie, stamped killed in action. So unfortunately, Horace Isles is buried in CA Cemetery number 1, which we will be visiting the area of the Somme, and we will go to that grave, and we will lay a poppy at his grave.
I wonder, even if he had received the letter from his sister, whether he would have done what she begged him to do, or whether he would have thought, no, I'm in this with my mates, because they were pals. You know, it's hard to sort of work out. They'd trained together here, they'd gone and served in Egypt together, and then they're on the front line together. Would you? Yes, he was entitled to tell the generals, because it was quite well known that there were underage soldiers, and they were actually. The generals realised it was rather bad, and they could have sent him home. But would he have done that, or would he have wanted to stay with his mates?
It was very much of a pact, I can imagine, like a blood pact, like brothers on brothers, brothers in arms.
Which is why they chose to have pals together.
So there's a few symbols and plaques in memory, and yes, quite a few plaques and things. So this must have been when they're training, and these are what the tents would have looked like when they first arrived. They set up these tents, and I don't know if you can see anything. If we have a little wander around, have a little look over around there might be some things we can see. Just going to have a little quick look across the road, because the camp did spread.
It was right down over here.
Over this road, hasn't it? Now I can see over here, just try and zoom in a bit better than this, sort of stonework there, and a bit of an indentation.
Well, you can see definite evidence of huts.
So it definitely was over on this side, across the road.
It was on both sides, wasn't it?
Yeah, on both sides.
Well, of course, it was originally constructed for the reservoir construction workers who lived here, some of them with their families, and there was quite, I think, up to 400 men. Interestingly, to help with the war effort, dam building was suspended, and the construction material and workers were used in the war effort, and obviously this accommodation.
Unfortunately, we've not brought a poppy, have we?
Well, we couldn't find one. We normally have a few knocking about, but it's not approaching November the 11th, is it? So
no.
It's but we'll buy some for when we go to France in September.
There is some wreaths and various poppy crosses down here.
How it worked is every man was recorded either on a headstone, or if they couldn't find that man, and it's very poignant, a gravestone will say unknown soldier, and at the bottom it says known unto God. That man is still recorded on a memorial wall, whether it be the Menin Gate, Tynecott, Lewes, Plug Street, various memorials, and they are recorded on them. So every man is recorded.
Well,
I hope you enjoyed that little memorial to the fallen.
a little bit different to what we normally do.
Well, we'll be doing more of this summer, this September, won't we?
And
we are going to the Somme.
We do normally like to have quite a bit of harmless fun, but
this isn't the time and the place.
There's a time and a place for that, isn't there?
But I have to say, if you chose, I'm sure Karen will put up 3 words of where we are. If anybody wants to visit this, I have to say it is a beautiful, peaceful, picturesque location.
It's so quiet, isn't it? All you can hear is birds.
I think I can hear some water.
I can hear some water.
Yeah,
and that's it.
In the valley bottom.